So welcome to our workshop on bringing a girl up to college. Thank you all for being here in general at the summit. It's really nice to see a lot of young, inspirational, talented women all gathered in one place. Even at college, like the high school girls still continue to inspire me because you all are so resilient. So just a show of hands here, is anyone here already in college? Okay, sweet. And do your Girl Up clubs have ones, or is that why you're here, so that you can learn how to found one at your university?
The charter's waiting.
Charter's waiting?
It's a process.
Yeah.
For sure.
Okay, sweet. So first things first, Julie and I are going to introduce ourselves, and then we're going to kind of walk you guys through our experiences chartering, and then we're going to walk you through the experience of what we think should kind of be your go-to route on how to found your campus club. Because we've kind of learned through trial and error, and we're here to share some advice with you. So.
And then at the end, or at any time in the middle, if you guys have questions, just feel free to shout them out.
Absolutely, absolutely. All right, so my name's Connie Shank. I'm a student at the University of Pittsburgh. I'm going into my junior year, and I study anthropology and psychology. I actually got involved in Girl Up around 2012 at my high school, which is located in Doylestown, Pennsylvania. I went to CB West High School. And I founded, so in high school, I was talking with my Girl Up advisor, and she's like, you know, like, there's that Girl Up on Pitt's campus. And I was like, really? And so lo and behold, got there in the fall, and there was no Girl Up. So in 2016, So in the spring of 2016, I embarked on the process of founding Girl Up on Pitt's campus, but I'll talk about that a little bit later. And I currently serve as the president of Pitt's Girl Up. So my favorite Girl Up memories happen to be bonding with my members and officers, and I also have a hilarious volunteer story that I just want to share with you guys really quick. So my club actually does a monthly volunteering at a local church making sustainable pads that we send to girls abroad. And when I was there volunteering, I was talking with the woman and that was running the volunteering, and I was like, so how did you guys manage to secure like this church area for your volunteering efforts? And she's like, well, I'm actually the pastor here. And so I was like, oh, okay. And so she's talking to me a little bit about the church, and next thing I know, she's like, let me take you on a tour of my entire church. And I was like, well, okay. And it just happened to be like the most beautiful church ever, but I was just like, you know, this is just so me. That I just go somewhere for volunteering, and next thing I know, I'm on a church tour. The entire congregation happens to be there that day for some reason. I'm getting like the history of this entire church in the middle of Pittsburgh. But that's one of my other favorite memories from Girl Up for sure. And so my life generally revolves around women's rights and advocacy. It kind of always has. I'm involved in a lot of organizations that support and encourage women all over the globe, from just little Doylestown, which is where I'm from, all the way out to India, Guatemala, Ethiopia, and that's us. So, all right.
Okie dokie. So me next. So, oops, there we go. So I have been a Girl Up member since I went to college. I discovered them at my school's activities fair, which is an awesome way to recruit members, by the way. So I've been the secretary, vice president twice, and now I'm the president, which is super exciting. There's me at the Women's March, which is cool. My favorite Girl Up memory, we, on my campus club, we do a semesterly girl empowerment workshop called Girl to Girl, where we go to local low-performing middle schools and teach them about sort of self-love and healthy relationships, healthy body image, things like that. And so those are my favorite things to do. We actually had the first middle school that we started doing these events with, I looked on the Girl Up community website and found out that they had actually started their own club, which is like a score. And yeah, that's me.
All right, perfect. So as you guys see on the handout, I was talking to my dad about starting campus clubs, and he's like, oh, it sounds a little bit like Star Wars. And I was like, oh, wow, that's so accurate. It's really confusing. There's a lot going on. People tell you where to start, and you're like really not sure, because other people tell you to start in different places. You're really not sure what order everything goes in. So we're here to kind of help guide you along the process. So my journey starting a campus organization was a little bit rocky, to say the least. So in the spring of 2015, I actually started reaching out to several different Facebook groups for the University of Pittsburgh, and just kind of like throwing a little thing out there. I wanted to start Girl Up Club, but I didn't really know how or if there'd be enough people interested, so I kind of just started posting little tiny things about Girl Up, and I got a enormous response, tremendous amount of support from my campus community. So it went from not really sure, like knowing like if there were going to be a lot of members or interested people, to having like 300 emails of people that I've never met before, people messaging me on Facebook, like how can I get involved? And so I was like, this is awesome. So I started seeking out officers, found a couple officers after I interviewed them, and started planning our initial activities, launching our social media sites, and began contacting our university about recognition. And our recognition process was very rocky. And do you want to talk more about chartering, or I can talk about chartering? It's entirely up to you.
Yeah, so chartering, it's an interesting experience at each university. Some put up more of a struggle than others. For me at Wake Forest, a smaller private school, it takes about a semester. You kind of have to prove yourself. They give you kind of one year where you're kind of in limbo, where they kind of recognize you and kind of support you, and they want to see what you can do to prove your worthiness, just to prove that you can do what you say that you can do. At other universities, do you want to talk a little bit about your experience?
Yeah, so at a larger university from whom I've talked to that have founded clubs at larger universities, we tend to all consistently have the same process of it being multi-semester long. So I start the process of initiating chartering in the spring of 2015, and I didn't receive recognition until nearly December of 2016. So it was, so spring of 2016 to fall of 2016, it was probably about 6 months. And in that 6 months, I basically was kind of up and running the entire club, just needed my charter. So it was just waiting on my university, which I know some people have kind of said, like, yeah, I'm just waiting on the charter. And so applying for a charter usually entails having to submit information about your organization. So they're going to want information on the web page, they're going to want information on the United Nations Foundation themselves, and they're going to want information on you as a leader, and also probably the rest of the officers that you choose. You're going to need to form a constitution, and you're going to need to usually pick an advisor, but we can get into that a little bit later. So then after we kind of went through the process of composing our constitution and finding our advisor and applied, we finally got recognized. And along the way, we learned a lot, and so that's kind of what we hope to walk you guys through today. So.
Sure. Do you guys have any questions kind of right off the bat? Anything here, Scott? No? Yes? No? Okay, that's fine. Yes!
Yeah.
What's up? Here, why don't you take the mic?
Okay. So I noticed you have like an awesome board to bring to activities, fairs and stuff. And so I've been at 2 with my like high school Girl Up Club, and it's been pretty easy because I have that at home, or I can just like run to the craft store, but like logistically, how do you buy your like craft supplies to do things like that? And is it like your club budget, or is it like coming out of your like spending party money or whatever?
So we actually, we're going to talk about funding in probably in the next slide,
Okay.
because we have very different experiences with funding. So far, I just want to kind of walk you guys through the handout I gave you. So you guys know my experience, and so as you can see, there's a lot of things floating around. I had an advisor, I had 300 emails, but not a lot of organization. So my first recommendation for someone that's planning on starting a Girl Up Club is to sit down and generate a specific email server and an email account right off the bat. As soon as you know, I want to start a Girl Up Club, generate these things. I really recommend something called MailChimp, because MailChimp will regulate and help send out newsletters for you, and the email account will be the main source of contact. Do not put your personal email as the contact information for your club, because then you'll get emails from people, like 300 emails from people, which is what I did. Don't do that to yourself. It's very stressful. And so that's my first recommendation. You also need to come up with a mini slogan. So in recruiting members, you're going to need to give them a little catchphrase that will be able to kind of draw them in. And then reach out to your campus community, Facebook, Instagram, to recruit your initial members. And once you get that going, you can send out the information on Girl Up via email and kind of remind them. So that's what I have so far.
Great.
So those are kind of just our first contact points, and now we're going to get into funding.
I couldn't think of a good picture for funding, so here's a cute dog with money on his head. So, like we mentioned before, funding at each university is very different. And so at Wake Forest, it has been my experience that when you are a chartered organization, you have the ability to apply for funding from the university. They have kind of student funds, and so we always overshoot it. And we ask for more just because you never know what they're going to give you, and they usually will give you a whole lot less. And so in the process of applying for money from your university, at least what Wake Forest does is they have you write out each expense that you're expecting to have in the next year to kind of justify your budget. And so there's a whole process in that. So myself as the vice president last year, I met with our treasurer and we kind of devised, we had a rough plan of the activities that we wanted to hold that semester. So in doing that, we could kind of think, well, we need $20 for construction paper, and kind of eyeball the things that we would need. And that overshooting the budget a little bit will give you the wiggle room a little bit. Does anyone have any questions on that? Yes.
How does fundraising look different in college?
Yeah.
Ooh, that's a great question. Do you want me to answer that?
Sure, go for it.
So that kind of directly ties in with what to do if your university doesn't offer funding, because University of Pittsburgh doesn't offer funding. So it's really difficult, honestly, to start a club when you don't have any funds, because a lot of it, to be honest with you, is going to come out of your personal account at first, to be perfectly honest with you. So the way that the University of Pittsburgh's recognition looks like is that we directly miss any potential grants we can apply for. So since we are a part of a nonprofit organization as our home organization, we can't actually apply for funding, but we can apply for grants. And grants can be used directly for events, but not for actually doing anything for our club, as in buying construction paper, buying the poster boards, stuff like that. So the trifold that you guys saw in the bottom corner of the last, can you possibly scroll to show them? So this was all made with stuff that came out of my personal account at first, which was definitely hard, but I looked at it more of like an investment. And so I was like, I'm investing in Girl Up. And once you start fundraising, then you can kind of put that money and be like, okay, this is what I need to pay back for the stuff that we're putting in to Girl Up, and then you can fundraise the additional amount to actually go back to the organization to go to the United Nations Foundation. But the way that I think fundraising really looks different in college is that it's really honestly difficult to kind of get college kids to spend money, and I don't know if it's the same at Wake Forest, but at the University of Pittsburgh, to be honest with you, it's very difficult to fundraise money, and there's very effective ways to fundraise with college kids, and it usually involves food. Almost always it's gonna involve food. And so oftentimes, like, you can do a lot of different things in high school in terms of fundraising, but the most effective way to fundraise in college is through food fundraisers. And then you can kind of go from there with wherever you need to put those funds. So.
And again, so my experience is a little bit different. So because Wake does provide us with a budget, we are grateful to be able to use that budget to buy things like baking supplies that we will then use for our bake sale, and then we can sell the goods at our bake sale, returning 100% of the profit back to Girl Up. Does that make sense? So in doing research and sort of starting your club at your university, that's something you want to look into. What will allow you to spend money on, because using it for food can be kind of tricky. We bought pizza for our first meeting and got slapped on the wrist for it, because you're not allowed to get people food in the club, but you can get food for bake sales. So it's kind of, each university will have their own kind of rules about it. Does that answer your question?
Yeah.
Okay, great.
Sweet. Does anyone have any other questions about funding and budgeting before we move on? And if a question hits you later, feel free to raise your hand. We're not like cutting off the questions on funding right now. We just wanted to see. Okay.
So kind of carrying along with what kind of fundraising activities are best to do, often, like Kelly said, ones that involve food are great. And so Winston-Salem, where Wake Forest University is the home of Krispy Kreme donuts. So what Krispy Kreme will do, which is great, is we'll give you a discount off of a box of a dozen donuts, and let you sell them back for a nonprofit. And we also here did a frozen yogurt profit share. So we reached out to a local restaurant who's been great about helping us. So we would reach out to him. We promised him that we would bring people in, And so we advertise around our university, and then 10% of the profit for the end of that night will come back to us.
Yeah, and so my university did something very similar, and these types of fundraisers are perfect in your first semester, especially when you're just trying to get the ball rolling, you're just trying to get funds going, you might not have the connections that you need to run larger fundraisers. These are the perfect just kinds of, you set up a date usually with the restaurant or coffee shop, the business, and they usually will ask you how many people you're expecting. So my university, we did one with Chipotle, which is very lucrative. I really recommend that one. And we also have a local sushi place that we did this type of fundraiser with. And essentially what you do is you just advertise, and the best way that you can do that is literally hand someone a piece of paper and say, go support my organization. It's basically excuse to go get yourself Chipotle today. And people are like, well, it supports a good cause, so of course I'm gonna go get Chipotle. And that's honestly, I think, one of the most effective ways to fundraise in college, just because college kids want that kind of incentive, like, what is this gonna give back to me? Another thing that we have done at the University of Pittsburgh is we actually have an online sticker sale. And so what we do is we designed our own stickers, and then we sell them online, and people can order them in, and then part of the profits go back to us. Does that make sense?
And you had mentioned earlier about the poster. One thing that I would definitely recommend investing in is one of these big posters that you can buy from Staples, because you can roll it up, it's water resistant, and Wake actually allows us to hang it kind of outside wherever we want, whenever we want, as long as it's not obnoxious. So this is great. So it has Girl Up, United Nations, and then Wake Forest University, and I'd recommend putting like an email or something on that, just so they know how to contact you. I saw you, and then you. Here, wait, let me give you this.
So I really liked your idea about the sticker sale. What did you guys use to do that? Like, is it, like, did you design your own stickers, or?
So my treasurer is super duper crafty. Like she's just like phenomenal. And so what she did was she basically made different graphics and created our own stickers. So some of them are just like really cool word art that say like empowered women empower women. There's all different ones that we have, and so you go onto Redbubble and you can upload a design, or you can just make one on the site that they'll basically give you different fonts, different sticker styles and stuff like that. And basically all you do is you upload your design, and then you basically just get the profits from them. And it also is nice because you don't actually have to hold any inventory unless you want to buy them in bulk and then have them sent to you, and then you can sell them. What I really recommend, if you're planning on doing something like a sticker sale, a t-shirt sale, make it something that is both unique to your university or something that people outside of Girl Up will want as well. So the empowered women stickers are like perfect because any girl really is probably gonna want a sticker like that. It's very much a thing that people have right now, are all those like really amazing stickers because they're really cool. And so that's just my recommendation. But I've honestly found that the sticker fundraiser has been like one of the best for us as a university. So, any other questions?
How did you organize the poster? So is there graphics that you get from Girl Up, because you can't, okay.
Yeah, so on the Girl Up community, they have all of these, their specific logos, the specific colors that they use, and everything like that, and I can show you that after this if you want me to. Any other questions you guys have? Cool.
Wait, sorry.
Yes.
What's the cost of making this?
The poster, this one, I want to say like 60, 70, so it's kind of pricey, but you can use it forever.
Yeah, and so that's like the one thing that I, as a club, really want to invest in. Those are extremely effective, but when you're just starting out, the trifolds work just as well, especially if you make it like cute and make it so that people want to approach the poster. People will still do that anyway, and it's just a cheaper alternative. I think the whole entire trifold cost me like $15 to make, and it's probably going to be used at least for the next couple years.
So when you're first starting out and working on getting a budget or funding or anything like that, some easy things to do are documentary screenings, and you can advertise them to the entire community, so not just your club. So a couple documentaries that we just screened The Eagle Huntress this past semester. We've screened He Named Me Malala and Pray the Devil Back to Hell, things like that. And so what we do is we will collect a list of professors that are teaching classes that have to do with women empowerment, or professors in the sociology department, religion sometimes, if that is applicable to the movie, and we'll send them out emails and let them know that we're showing a movie. And often what they will do is pass the message along to their students and offer extra credit if they go. So that's a great way to get the message out there about your club. Before the screening, you can stand up and do a little spiel about the club, and then afterwards you can hold discussion groups. And I know, especially for He Named Me Malala, Girl Up, the community online has a wealth of discussion questions and sort of prompts that you can use for effective thought exercises after the movie to kind of get groups to come together.
And so we actually, as a part of our Women's Empowerment Week, which is a new initiative at the University of Pittsburgh, we actually showed Girl Rising. And what was really cool about that is that since it was a collaborative event, there was a lot of other women's organizations. And it was nice because we already had an audience that was really captivated in, and you will have that with documentary screenings for the most part, is that the audience is already interested in stuff that is involved around women's empowerment. So when you're talking to them about your club, if they're interested in the documentary, they're probably going to be interested in your club as well. So it's a really nice way to recruit members. And that's just kind of my tidbit there.
And one thing to keep an eye out for, however, while documentary screenings are easy to do, sometimes to get the rights to show the documentary at your university, it's considered kind of a public showing, you have to pay for the rights, and those can run sometimes upwards of $300. So be careful when doing that. Just make sure that you check with the movie studio about their rights and things like that. Did you have a question?
Yes. So I was wondering if you guys ever teamed up with other clubs or organizations on campus, and how did that work out for you?
That is a perfect segue to, I think
That actually is literally the perfect segue. You really called it.
Oh,
just
not that
skip
one.
and
Okay,
we'll
we'll come
back to that. There we go. Okay, so I actually am the queen of collaborative events, especially since that we were a brand new organization. I really wanted to get engaged with other organizations to get the word out, but also to have support of other organizations' members. And so that's kind of exactly what we did. We just collaborated with other organizations. And luckily, I have amazing friends that run all different types of organizations on campus, and they were more than welcome to help. And so I personally love collaborating. It's really cool to kind of see what other clubs are doing to get ideas for your own club. So some of the things that Girl Up has gotten engaged in was Women's Empowerment Week. And also, we in particular did an event called Cocktails and Consent, which was run by Greek Life. And so in doing that event, we got a whole new scale of people kind of coming through, asking us questions. And we kind of got to be part of this wonderful raising awareness for sexual assault on campuses, and for raising awareness for domestic violence, stuff like that on our campus. And it was really just a great experience in general, because every single experience you get in collaborating, in tabling, is just another opportunity to advocate for Girl Up and to let people know about the message. My last thing really would be in school-wide events, would be participating in group volunteering days. So the Martin Luther King Day of Service is one of the largest volunteering events, I'm pretty sure, in the city of Pittsburgh. And that's a perfect way to get a bunch of people from your organization out there into the community, so that the community at large knows about your organization as well. So that's just my experience. I think it's a great idea to collaborate with other organizations as much as possible.
especially if they have funding. So a couple of the things that I have that we've participated in. So one of the service fraternity on our campus did an event called Stop Hunger Now, where we just for an hour packed food bags as fast as we possibly could. We did a couple thousand, which was incredible, and so we got a Girl Up team there, so we're all wearing hairnets, which is lovely. And then also each October, Wake Forest hosts Project Pumpkin, and so that's an opportunity for kids who live in areas where it's not safe to go trick-or-treating to come on campus and go trick-or-treating in a safe environment. And so we have candy and games, and it's a fun way to interact with the community and do outreach. Oops. Do you guys have any questions on that? Yeah.
at your schools, did you already have clubs such as like feminist club and stuff, and did that coincide with Girls Up, or were there no such things before?
So the University of Pittsburgh has so many different women's organizations, and the nice thing is that I was really concerned that there'd be a lot of competition, and there was not any. So on the University of Pittsburgh campus, we have an organization called FEM, which is the feminist organization. We have one called Women's Campus Organization, which is a more intersectional organization than the feminist organization on campus. And then we have several different organizations that have very similar messages to Girl Up, but they're more geared towards like one of our pillars. So they're more geared towards education or safety, something like that. And the really nice thing is that you can kind of play off of each other's strengths and weaknesses, where it's like, I know that one of the organizations on campus loves doing stuff for education, so you see if they want to collaborate on an event. And most of the time they're going to want to, because all the funds are just going back to women, and that's really the point and the goal, and a lot of the members overlap, like a ton of them do. And oftentimes when you get to college, the people that are going to be in those organizations, leading those organizations, are probably going to be your friends. They're probably going to be some of your best friends. One of my best friends is the president of the FEM organization. One of my other best friends is the social media chair for the campus women's organization. So they're just more than willing to help in most cases.
Yes, I second that. Thank you. So even in my high school, which isn't even that big, starting a club, they had a lot of questions about like, oh, we have something similar like this. Why do you have to do this? And I'm sure you guys got that with Girl Up when there's other like feminist clubs or something like that. So how did you deal with that with administration? So that also comes into play in the chartering process. So I recently have been starting to charter a Women in Science club, and so we received a lot of pushback in that arena because someone was also trying to start a Women in Science sorority, and so they wanted to know how the two are different. And so I think you can highlight in your constitution and things like that, you can highlight the ways that you are different, and not necessarily better, but different, and how you can complement and work to further your mission in ways that the other organizations do not. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So yeah, doing research on them, and then also really having a solid understanding of your own mission will help you get through that. And sometimes it does take a lot of pushback, and in the process that we just recently went through, we had to meet with a lot of administration. You just kind of have to hold your ground and show them you're here to stay.
Could you talk about the process of, creating the Constitution?
Yeah.
Thanks.
So I believe it's the same across the board, and correct me if I'm wrong, but different universities on their websites for student organizations will tell you what they need. So different things like your mission, what are you planning to do, and things like that. And I believe there are copies of example constitutions for middle school clubs on the Girl Up community website. Yes. And I think you can take those and tweak them a little bit and also make them applicable to your school and see how that's responded to, and make sure that those views and goals align with your own.
The best thing you can do for yourself is to get in contact with a president of another organization on your campus that's already received a charter and ask to borrow their constitution, and then see what they have, the type of language they're using, and it's basically take theirs, if you don't already have a rough outline, to kind of outline what you're going to add, because that is just going to expedite your chartering process. That's what I did. My roommate actually has founded 3 clubs on my campus, and I basically, yeah, I know, right? Basically, I looked at her constitution. I was like, what does she have? Okay, this is what I have. I tweaked a lot of things, but that's also because the University of Pittsburgh has like 8, 9, 10-page long constitutions. So we have to have extremely in-depth constitutions, and that's why I didn't want to mess up, because if you mess up, your charter could be held back several months.
And I think the reason for the length and the attention to detail that universities pay is that's another reason. They don't want to give you funding or necessarily recognize you if you can't even put in the effort to do this, to make sure that your goals are clear, which should be first and foremost.
Absolutely. And really quick, I just want to there was a question on pushback from other organizations or pushback from the administration. I'm going to be honest with you, I did not experience that at the University of Pittsburgh. And I think the reason for that is because I emphasized that it was a United Nations Foundation program, and that was something that was so unique to the University of Pittsburgh. But I also think it was because the Student Organization Resource Center saw how ridiculously excited I was, and they were like, we don't want to tell this girl no. Like, I think that was definitely part of it. If you seem like, if you are so passionate that there is no doubt in their mind that you could do this, I think that standing your ground is the best thing you can do. And if they push back, you push back harder, because we all know how important Girl Up is. Just in our own lives, but also in the lives of girls abroad, so.
I have a question.
Of course.
Have you guys ever had a speaker come into one of your meetings and try to talk to people in your club, and how did you do that?
Yeah, so we've had a couple. We actually had one professor who reached out to us, who she spends so much of her time abroad, and she is very well versed, and so she had picked out a couple books and documentaries. So we had read the books beforehand, and she actually invited us over to her house for dinner, which was very cool. And we were very thankful for her for doing that for us. And then we're in the process of this next semester inviting people who work with refugees to come, refugees specifically in North Carolina, to come and speak with us to sort of raise awareness, and not only just to our club, but we want to open it up to the university as a whole. And we have a, yes. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And we've had other clubs who are interested in recruiting volunteers for things that align with our mission, such as education and things like that. They were having school days where they would go to schools and kind of talk about how great college was and things like that. And so they would come and ask if our girls wanted to go and participate. And so yeah, we do a little bit of trading people back and forth.
So I have never had the experience of having a speaker come in, because that is not something that my club has done yet. And we're planning on doing it next semester, so I will keep the Girl Up community updated on how it goes. Essentially, a lot of times you'll end up like stumbling upon people that are just like the perfect speaker, and you'll be like, can you come speak? And most people will end up saying yes, and then you just set up a date and time with them, and then they will meet with you. It's basically been my experience in other organizations, but Girl Up itself at Pitt has never organized their own speaker to come in.
And especially in the beginnings of your club, and even later on, asking professors to come in and speak on perhaps their own research that involves women, that could be beneficial as well. Not necessarily, they don't have to be outside the university. But.
Excellent question.
So this is, I think we're almost wrapping up our material. We have a couple more slides.
Yeah.
So I wanted to talk a little bit about activism in your immediate community, and I did an Inspire table session on this earlier today, but I think it's so important. The goals of Girl Up not only are applicable abroad, but they're also applicable in our own backyards, and sometimes we lose sight of that. And so one thing that my club loves to do, we have a semesterly girl empowerment workshop at a low performing middle school in the area, and so we do activities with them about healthy body image, eating healthy, good friendships, things like that. And like this was an example, Reach for the Stars, we made a banner with them, so each girl traced out her hand on a piece of construction paper and then wrote her goals on it, and then was reaching for the stars here, and that was something that they could keep in their school and kind of hold as a reminder for themselves.
Excellent. We can scroll down, and then I have the one slide that.
Oh yeah.
Okay, this is actually supposed to be a literally hilarious video of me. I don't know if it's gonna play or not. I thought it was. Oh, it's like, oh, maybe it'll work. No, just kidding. Yeah, just try to do that. Perfect. Actually, we'll just wait. We'll stop right there. Okay, so here's some other ideas for activities. So my officers and I were extremely close. And so a lot of our first semester was my officers, our close friends, and several other people from our club community, but we were really very small. And so we had a couple ideas that really worked well for us. One of the things that we're trying to implement is actually a book club where we all kind of get together, we read a book that is recommended by either Girl Up or another organization, and then we talk about it over coffee and over brunch. And then that's one of the biggest things that I think was the most fun for all of us. Here are just several of our coffee dates. We'd always meet for coffee dates to talk about the logistics for Girl Up, just because it kind of relaxes the environment a little bit. We did a ton of information tables and activities fairs. if you guys do activities fairs, always bring little slips, so like 1/4 piece of paper with information on Girl Up, your contact information, and also bring candy. Always bring candy. If you can bring candy, people will swarm towards candy. So always bring those to activities fairs and information tables. And we found that social media challenges were also really effective for us. So for example, like doing the global 5K and posting all your results online, that gets people interested. Doing the hashtag global goals, which was a thing earlier this semester, is also really effective. So those were just some of the things that we did as a university. So yeah. And then the last slide really is just kind of talking about how at Pitt we actually got involved in we stumbled upon our pad making volunteering efforts, which is a monthly volunteering effort that we do as a club. And that's one of the things we do. I think that that's a really great bonding experience, but it also keeps people engaged. And it also draws in members because people want those volunteering hours and sometimes don't know how to find it without it being too daunting. So just going once a month at the club is like a really good fit for most people. So yeah, I can.
You both seem to be very involved, so I'm wondering what other student groups you do and how you balance those with school and everything.
That's a good question. So I am also on my campus involved in that Women in Science Club that I was mentioning earlier, as well as heavily involved in, I was on the executive board of my sorority as well, and it is difficult to balance having meetings and doing things like that with your executive board and trying to get everybody in the same place at the same time to talk about things. You can do it though. For example, we had our executive board meetings to plan out our meetings for our club meeting for the week. We would have our executive board meetings on Monday at 8 o'clock, just because that's when it worked for everybody. We would all bring dinner and kind of hang out for a little while. You could also, however, use a platform like Google Slides or something like that, collaborative software where you can all work remotely but still get it done, if that makes sense. It's hard to balance for sure. I write everything down and have sticky notes with everything everywhere, but you make it work, yeah. And especially in the beginning, it's definitely harder, but if you have a good executive board and good people surrounding you and strong belief in the mission of what you're working on, it'll work out. Does that help you?
So the real reason, the real reason I'm asking is because I've done a lot of this, and this has been like my extracurricular life for the past 3 years. So I'm like wondering what it's gonna look like in college and what like else I might want to try too, but like while still keeping Girl Up.
Understood. So my experience is pretty similar to Julia's. So at Pitt, I'm a double major in psychology and anthropology, as I mentioned before, which has its own, and I also TA for Bio 1. But I'm the president of Girl Up. I'm a member of an organization called Charge, which is a national women's exercise and empowerment organization. I'm a member of something called Gluten-Free Awareness League because I have celiac disease, and we talk about gluten-free diets. We try to make sure that there's gluten-free options on campus. I'm also a part of Sophomore Soroptimist International, which is an international women's organization that's kind of like the big girl version of Girl Up, even though Girl Up is relevant for the entire lifetime. And I also run my own blog. I'm a public speaker, and I'm currently in the process of developing an app, and I work at J.Crew as a stylist.
Do you sleep?
So my biggest tip, if you have 1,001 things on your plate, you're rattling them off, and you can't even keep track of who you are sometimes at the end of the day, befriend all of the people around you. If you can make your officers, your coworkers, your parents, all of those people your friends, and feel comfortable with them at all times and feel okay to reach out to them when you're like, this is way too much, that's honestly, they're gonna be your best advocates and your best supporters. Knowing when to take a step back is really important, but my biggest tip by far for campus leaders is follow the 1/7 rule at all times. 1/7 of your time should be spent on you and something that you actually want to do for yourself every day and every week. So if you think about it, you sleep 8 hours a night, all right? So that leaves 14 hours left in your day. Okay, ideally you sleep 8 hours a night, unless you're like me during finals and I'm like, 2 hours of sleep is enough to take an exam. I'm just kidding, don't do that. So 14 hours of your day, you're gonna be awake. So then 5 hours, or do you have a question?
Oh, you have 5 minutes.
5 minutes? Oh, okay. Sorry. He's just like throwing up a 5 back there. I'm like, okay. And so 1/7 of your day, so out of the 14 hours, 2 hours of that day should be spent on you. And then 1 day a week should be spent doing things entirely for you and your own pleasure, okay? And if you follow that rule, you will remain sane, you will remain happy, which is the most important thing. But I also really recommend that you find activities that you love, like exercising. Find one exercise activity that you love doing, and also try to eat as healthy as you can in college, and also sleep. Sleep is so important. And I know that sounds like a lot, but if you follow the 1/7 rule, everything will fall into place. So, any other questions? We still got a couple minutes left.
How do you deal with people who want to be on the executive board or are really excited about Girl Up, but then they're just like, say they're too busy with classes, they can't come to meetings, or they can't do that certain event? Like, what do you do?
Girl after my own heart.
So the process that we go through to pick our officers is a little bit unique, maybe. So we have some officers that are voted on by the entire club, and those are things, and they also go by a semester basis. So things like social media, campus relations, like just speaking with people on campus to reserve rooms and things like that. So those things are semester long, and they're less of a time commitment. So people still are involved in a leadership role, but not quite to the extent. And so those are voted on by the club as a whole, and then the executive board from the previous year will read through the applications of the people who would like to be on exec the next year. And all of those applications will be anonymous, and the old exec votes on new exec. Does that make sense? Because they kind of have the best understanding of what is required of the position, and so they, I feel, are best suited to pick the people. And so, let me rephrase that. So, yes, does that make sense?
Yeah. We have a very similar process. So what we do is we publish a Google form that people can submit. We post it on all of our social media, and we say if any members are interested in submitting their information, you can go ahead and do that. We have several different questions. It's actually a really extensive form. It's basically a job application, because my idea is, like, if you are going to fill out this application, you're probably going to be fine with Girl Up, because it's a really extensive application. And then we pull people in for interviews after we give everyone a chance to interview, but then we select our favorites out of the group and then bring them all in with the either remaining officers that are there, or something of that nature, or one officer will try to meet with them depending on timing and see if they're a good fit for the rest of the pre-existing officer board. And since we're such a new organization, that's been what's working for us. But in the future, we hope to have general body elections, but we're kind of working with what we got right now. That wasn't just feasible for our club this year, so.
I think this is probably true for a lot of people here, but how did you deal with the fact that you were a club leader, but you also had to delegate a lot of your tasks away, and you just didn't have time to do everything, but you really wanted everything to be the way you wanted to be?
Wow, that is the golden question. That is a story of my life, girlfriend.
So that's tough, and that's why it's important when you're kind of building your executive board, especially in the first year, that you really fill it with people who, they don't always have to have the same beliefs as you. It's better if they don't, so you can kind of be challenged and pushed in new directions. But I think it's important that you build a strong group, a reliable group around yourself. I think we have time for one more question.
And trust. Trust the people around you, because I'm one of those people that I really just like doing things my own way, but sometimes if you just trust in other people, they'll manage to pull through in incredible ways you never expected.
So Kelly, I know you said you have been president of the Girl Up Club at your campus for 3 years now.
For 1.5.
Oh,
yeah.
1.5. Sorry.
No, you're you're fine.
But do you guys do re-elections? Is that something that you do? What if you get elected out, or it's not your club anymore?
So currently right now, that's actually been a huge problem, because I'm studying abroad in the fall. And unfortunately, the way that the officer board is flipping over is that they didn't really know anyone that had enough information on Girl Up or the contacts that I have that would be a good fit. So I'm going to be president when I'm abroad, which is not ideal, but my officer board is set up in a way that the entire club can actually function without me completely fine. I'm basically just the person that spots statistics at people, and I'm just making the PowerPoints. Right now is kind of what I do. But It's kind of hard to say since since the first officers were appointed, this was our first time actually having kind of an election type system, but even at that, it was kind of hard to run because towards the end of the semesters at Pitt, it's so hard to get people together. And that's not something we really anticipated happening, so we're like, oh, we can't actually have a real election. So then we're working on it. We're working on figuring it out. I don't know what would happen. If I got elected out, I honestly would be okay with it because that means that there's probably someone else that could run Girl Up a lot better than I can, or at least that the club thinks. And like, as much as that would hurt my feelings, like I want what's best for Girl Up and what's best for our campus organization, and not necessarily like what's best for like what I want, exactly, if that makes any sense.
So thank you so much, you guys. That is all the time we have. And so we'd be happy to give you guys the information you need. So yeah, have a good rest of your days.
And feel free to email us at any point. I'm really good at responding to emails, so.